Pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law 3818, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This continuation of a joint public hearing of the Salem City Council and Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technology means. In event that we were unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on City of Salem's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. We are recording this meeting. Is that correct, Madam City Clerk? Thank you. Individuals may participate remotely in the meeting via remote participation platform called Zoom. Members of the public and parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting may access the remote participation meeting through one of the following ways. Enter the link to the meeting via Zoom, which is on the city's website, which is on SATV. Also, if you are calling in, you may dial a toll-free number of 888-475-4499. And when prompted, enter the webinar ID 373-405-074 and follow the instructions. During the portion of the meeting in which public comment is permitted, we will be using the raise your hand function. In order to raise your hand, members of the public using the Zoom computer or phone application may click the raise hand button. Members of the public dialing in may press *9 to raise their hand in order to speak. You will be asked to provide your name and address for the record. If you've made a comment on March 30th, you will be asked to keep your comment brief to allow others to comment who have not been heard. The agenda for this meeting has been posted on the website. SATV will start airing this meeting live. Thank you for your patience. A continuation of joint public hearing of the City of Salem Council and Planning Board was held remotely on Monday, April 13th, 2020 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the following 3 separate zoning ordinance amendments relative to accessory dwelling units and inclusionary zoning pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 5 of the Massachusetts General Law. The purpose of this public hearing is to provide interested parties an opportunity to comment on the proposed 3 separate zoning amendments that are summarized in the agenda. And I will take someone's motion to waive the reading of those amendments as here. With us this evening, we have all the members of the City Council. And according to Ben Anderson, the Planning Board Chair, he tells me that all members of the Planning Board are here as well. I see all the lovely faces.
I don't think Bill is here.
You don't think Bill's here? Okay.
Yeah. Bill Grisette.
Reflect that Bill Grisette isn't currently with us. All of the members being present at this time. Also with us is Amanda from the Planning Board, Planning Department, Tom Daniels. Also with us, we have the mayor, and I believe I see Dominic in here someplace. It's like a big Hollywood Squares thing. We also have Georgie from the Planning Department, who will be acting as our person that once we go through public comment. At this time, seeing no objection, we will open it up to Councilor Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President, or Mr. Chair, for this meeting, rather. As I did at the last meeting, I'm going to make a motion that we continue this meeting. I'm going to recommend a date of May 18th. We all know that we're under an emergency right now. We have, the mayor has confirmed that 3 people have died that are from Salem. More have died at North Shore Medical Center from other towns. Members of the public have tried unsuccessfully to weigh in through the Zoom platform, and others simply have not been able to weigh in at all. This is not the way we should be conducting business, important zoning business that is permanent. Now is not the time to be making zoning changes. Even Council Madore has said that the ADU ordinance may only change or only yield 5 or 6 units. I think she said a year, I'm not sure. Don't remember the exact number. It might have been 4 or 6 units. It was a small number. So what is the rush? This could have serious consequences for the whole city. The other matter before us is not nearly as controversial as this one. perhaps we can take that one up and resolve that one. And I'm going to be supporting that one. It's a lot less controversial than what we're doing here, where we might be taking single family neighborhoods and making them two families. We don't really know what the ramifications will be on this, but we'll see that over the years to come. And I suspect that quite a few developers will take advantage of this, as was being done with the Airbnbs as well. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this public hearing to a date certain. I'll recommend May 18th, unless there's another date that the majority of us can deal with. So my motion is that we not even start this meeting tonight, that we continue it to May 18th, and I ask for that by roll call vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do I see a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilor Flynn. Seeing no further discussion.
Can I speak on that before, or am I not allowed to?
No, hold on, DJ. We got Councilor Terrell. Councilor Terrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. What I want to say about this, and we went through this same drama for nearly 45 minutes at the last meeting, and I understand that the city is in a state of emergency. I understand that there is a lot of stuff going on, and at the same time, a lot of people in the city of Salem are in a difficult state right now, but at the same time, we're not on furlough. We haven't been laid off. We're still here doing a job that we are being paid to do for the people of Salem, and we're dealing with matters that have been given to us to deal with. And, we are acting within the law. And clearly, and our city solicitor, who is our attorney, has made that clear when it was challenged. We are acting within what we have to do, and we're acting on a matter that was presented to us before this became a crisis. And we're doing it in a judicious manner, and we're not rushing anything. So this is something that we've had before us for now, at this point, over a month and a half. We've had plenty of time to read it. We'll have plenty of time to go through it as necessary. And starting this meeting off with a dramatic attempt to to get us to halt our runaway freight train is just utterly unnecessary. So with that, I say we move forward, and I move the question, Mr. President. Let's take the vote.
Councilor Dominguez, briefly, I will agree that Councilor Dibble is entitled to make his motion, and he and I have exchanged emails via this, and I respect his position, and I respect everyone's positions elected to this body. But at the same time, we debated this at last time. So, Councilor Dominguez, we could keep it brief so we can take the vote to see where the will is at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to also echo what the good Councilor Ward 7 say. I say last time, and I will repeat myself again. And with all due respect, I know that we are still working, but there are other matters who are more important. Which I understand what the good Councilor Ward 5 mentioned. We can deal with some other matters that are important to the situation that we are facing as a city, as a country, as a whole. I think that we need to be focused on some more important topic that's going to alleviate the situation of the people who are suffering the most. We don't think that this is the appropriate time to deal with any matter that are going to be changing zoning for permanently. We need to hear more from people, and we need to make sure that we really address the need of the people. This is an emergency. The whole world is closed. It's not only us. It's everywhere. And they only deal with the matter that really matter the most, the necessity, the essential. What is the essential right now? Life. We need to make sure that we continue to focus the same way the administration is focused on alleviate the situation on the coronavirus, making sure that everybody is clear on everything that what we're doing, because this is death and life. We need to focus on those issues. I don't think that this issue right now needs to be on the top of the list. We need to move forward. We can deal with other topics. We're going to continue to deal with topics that are pertaining to the need of the people that need it the most right now. So I'm in a full agreement that we have to postpone this meeting, at least this topic for another better time. Thank you.
Yep. Council President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I understand there are probably valid points on both sides of this argument. We're here all together right now as a group to discuss something that's very important. I don't want to shut that down and not be able to provide information to the public that's all tuned in right now and listening. I don't think that we may be coming to any kind of a vote tonight that's going to pass anything at this point. It's all still under discussion. I want to take this opportunity to get as much information as I can from the council and from the planning board and to hear from the public and continue the discussion so that when we do come to a decision, we make it properly. But I don't think that there's a lot of people that have tuned in tonight. And this would be a waste of their time and our time if we didn't discuss this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? Let me go to my other screen over here. Hold on, just to double check, make sure there's no one over here. Nope, seeing no one else. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Did you want a roll call vote?
Councilor Dibble asked for it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Didn't hear that part. Okay, Councilor Dibble?
Madam City Clerk, can you please explain what the vote is? Which way now?
A yes vote would be to continue the meeting. That was your motion, to continue to another date. A no vote would be not to continue and to stay right here.
Yes, my motion was that we continue it to May 18th, to be clear.
That's correct.
It's May 18th. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Councilor Dibble?
Yes.
Councilor Dominguez?
Yes.
Councilor Flynn?
Absolutely, yes.
Councilor Hapworth?
No.
Councilor Madore?
No.
Councilor Morcillo?
No.
Councilor Prosnewski? Councilor Riccardi?
No.
Councilor Sargent?
Yes.
Councilor Torrio?
No.
And Councilor McCarthy?
No. On the matter of continuing the public hearing to a date of May 18th, we have 11 members voting, 7 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative. The matter does not carry. Amanda, if you could you give us a brief, we'll take up the ADU ordinance again, if you could give us a brief overview. And for the record, since our last meeting, I have forwarded 2 emails along relative to people who reached out to me with questions and concerns. There were a handful of public comments that were sent to the council that the planning board did not see, and that Eileen forwarded all of those to the planning board as well. And they've looked at Tom Daniels and his staff has looked at those and have looked at some of the suggestions and incorporated some of the language changes that were suggested. And so if we could, Amanda, just briefly address some of those and then give us an overview of where we're at, and then we'll open it up. Thank you.
Sure thing. Georgie, could you share the presentation, please?
Let me know when you guys can see it.
Thank you. So as Councilor McCarthy had noted, staff has gone through the public comments that received and have made some suggested edits based on those comments. And so I'm just going to go through a couple of the edits. Georgie, could you go to the next slide, please? So I know this is a little small and I'll read it, but so there were a couple comments that were noted in either they were noted as either concerns with the language being too vague or unclear. And then there were some comments that had specific suggestions to the language. And so I went through those comments and made edits for the city councilors and planning board members to consider. The edits are not changing any of the intent of the ordinance. So what we discussed last time in recommendations, that all stays the same. This is just providing clarifications. So the first section of suggested edits are to section 3.2.4. And the city councilors and planning board members were sent this and track changes. If members of the public are interested, we can send that to them as well if they contact staff, and we can put that up on Imagine Salem. But here they are. So section 3.2.4. Now, this is regarding setbacks and dimensional standards. The intention of this ordinance has been for the ADU to comply with all the underlying dimensional standards for an accessory structure, with the exception of setbacks. Accessory structures are limited to 18 feet in height to 1.5 stories. There are required distances between buildings, all these different dimensional requirements for an accessory structure. The reason that we're recommending an exception of the setbacks is because an accessory structure is allowed to be closer to a property line than a principal structure. So if you think about, a garden shed, that can be really close to the property line, but a primary or principal structure has to be further away. So the thought there is if there's a dwelling unit, it should have the same setbacks as the principal structure, and that varies across zones, what those setbacks are. Again, this was already in the ordinance, but there were concerns from the public that it wasn't clear. And so the recommendation is that we specifically state the setback would be needed of what is required for a principal structure, irrespective of whether the principal structure on a property complies. So just making it clear, even if the principal structure doesn't comply with the zoning ordinance, the accessory structure still has to comply. So that's all that section says. Georgie, could you go to the next slide, please? I'm not seeing it.
It should load. It might take a minute.
All right. So this has 3 different sections with, I gotcha. Can everybody see this? Can you give
Yep.
a thumbs up?
It's all good.
Okay. So the next round of edits are to section 3.2.8. That first track change, you'll see instead of detached principal dwelling, it says principal dwelling. It has principal dwelling throughout. A detached dwelling is a single family home. So this is just making it clear that it's the principal dwelling that can have an accessory dwelling unit. And then it has to construct 1 additional dwelling unit per lot. That was already taken care of in section 4E. That says there's only 1 ADU allowed per lot. But again, there was just concern that that was vague. And so we added some boots and suspenders here and just clarified that it's per lot. There was a commenter who was also concerned with enforcement not being clear. So we added this last section to 2A. Before it just read, the building inspector shall administer and enforce the provisions of this section unless a special permit is required. Then the zoning board of appeals shall be the special permit granting authority. Now, the intent of that, again, was that the building inspector always administers. It's just always enforces the permit. It's just the granting authority changes. But again, adding those boots and suspenders, that the building inspector shall enforce the provision of the section and of the special permit. So even if it's a special permit, it's still being administered and enforced by the zoning enforcement officer. And then the next edit there is to section 3A, and that's regarding the application requirements. It clarifies that in the case a property is held by a condominium trust, all owners of all the condos must sign the application. That was always the intent. This just clarifies that. So those are the edits that were made. There are a couple locations that identified the principal structure as a primary dwelling. So those were all changed to principal dwelling for consistency, and that's what's defined in the ordinance. And there were a couple locations that referred to accessory dwelling units as accessory living areas. And so that was changed to accessory dwelling unit, again, for consistency. So that's all the changes. Again, nothing substantive. They were just clarifications. I do want to note that since the amendment to the ordinance was first submitted last summer, there have been several substantive changes that previously occurred, not right now, but previously. And so, Georgie, if you can go to the next slide. I sent this chart out to you. I know it's really blurry. The city councilors and planning board members have it. It's just a high level overview of the major changes that have occurred since last summer when this ordinance, a prior version, was submitted. And again, I'm not going to go through these, but I just wanted to give you an example. If you take a trip down memory lane, the prior version of the ordinance had a requirement that the unit be, that either the home or the accessory unit be occupied for the first 2 years by the owner of the property. So only 2 years. And through this public process of all the hearings and comments, we heard loud and clear that it's really important to have the owner at the property in perpetuity of the ADU being there, either in the accessory unit or in the primary unit. And so we changed that. And that was last year, that was changed. And that change carried forward. And there have been a lot of other changes that have carried forward. And that's more substantive. So I just want to highlight that we're listening to these comments, we're taking them, we're changing the ordinance, we're trying to get to something that all the city councilors can agree on and that members of the public will be happy with. And so that's just an overview of the changes. And then lastly, I just wanted to go over, again, high-level overview of supplemental programs that were filed at the same time as this ordinance. At the last meeting, Councilor Dominguez asked for that income chart to show what the income limits are for the supplemental programs. So this is it here. What I mean by supplemental programs, I'm referring to that tax reduction and loan program. They're both voluntary programs that are being proposed that owners could opt into, but in return, they'd be required to restrict their unit as affordable. And for the loan program, they would be required to have a deed restriction on the property, whereas the tax incentive would be an annual application to the city assessor. But with both programs, there's a requirement that the unit be affordable to households who do not earn more than 60% of the area median income. And so you'll see, an income limit and a rent limit with utilities on here. For a one-person household, they cannot earn more than $49,800, and their rent limit would be $1,245, including utilities. Now, the way that these have been proposed and drafted is that the two programs cannot be used concurrently. So what that means is a homeowner who participates in the loan program cannot also be eligible for the tax incentive until the loan is paid off. However, if it's the will of the council, we can modify that. But that was how they were drafted and have been proposed thus far. So that concludes my presentation. I just wanted to keep it really brief, hit the highlights of what's changed and give some clarifications. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Georgie, can we take the screen sharing down, please?
Yeah. 1 second.
Thank you. This time, before we open it up to questions, Tom Daniels, do you have anything to add to this?
No, I'm all set. Thank you very much.
Yep. Mayor Driscoll?
Hi, Councilor McCarthy. The only thing I would add is just to reinforce the zoning ordinance for ADUs is what the council will be voting on and what this public hearing is for. The affordability provisions are a separate order and a separate exemption language, just so folks are clear. It's not something we can build into the zoning ordinance at this time.
Yep. Okay. All right, I'll open up the councilors first. I see Councilor Turiel. Councilor Turiel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to clarify, and the mayor already said most of it on my behalf, but the affordability provisions are something that's in committee right now as part of, it's in, I think it's already been sent to Ola, so it's not part of this public hearing, but we need to be aware of what the proposal is. And if the will of the body is going to be to modify that as part of this, that's our option.
Great, thank you.
All set.
You're all set. Anyone else from the members of the council? Seeing no member of the council, then any member of the planning board? Kurt, Rita.
Yeah, I had a question for Amanda about the setbacks. I appreciate that you read through it several different ways, trying to explain the nuances of it. But my takeaway is still that any ADU must conform to the underlying zoning setbacks, not to the setback that the principal dwelling occupies. Is that correct? And before you answer, my rationale for asking for that clarification is it may be that the principal unit is not parallel to the lot, and so it may be converging on the adjacent property, and therefore any new ADU should not be allowed to match the principal unit. It should fall to the underlying zoning setback.
Okay.
Yeah, so the language was changed, and again, it just clarifying, it was always the intent that the accessory dwelling unit for setbacks have to comply with what a principal dwelling unit would have to comply with. So if a principal dwelling has to comply with a 20-foot, whatever side yard setback, let's say, then the accessory dwelling unit has to comply with that same setback, irrespective of where the principal dwelling is. So even if the principal dwelling does not comply with the setbacks, the accessory dwelling unit still would have to.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Napolitano.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is more of just a quick statement of support, not a question. So I'll keep it brief. But you know, a couple of the counselors who seem to be moving against this, you know, I keep hearing, you know, this is a permanent change. This is a permanent change. If zoning is permanent, what are we all doing here discussing zoning? Zoning is never permanent. It is meant to change with the times. As a city continues to grow, zoning is meant to change. That is why we're all here. That is why we have a planning staff. So that's just one point I would like to make. And secondly, we can't say in one breath that this is going to have a big impact on the city. And, you know, people who bought in an R1 zone, for example, don't want to live in an R2. But then in the second point, say, why are we doing this if it's only going to create 5 units at a time? So if it's either going to create 5 units and not have a major impact, or it's going to have a major impact. It can't be both. Those are two opposite ideas, and they can't be both. So it is a false narrative to say this is going to have a major impact on the city, but then in the next sentence say, but we only think it's going to be 5 units at a time. So why are we doing this? Because this isn't going to help our affordable housing issues. So I just want to get that out there. And we, as mainly the city councilors, we as a city council and board of appointed board, we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Yes, it is devastating what we are going through. But when this is over, we have to have appropriate policies in place so we do not fall behind and leave our most vulnerable residents and just general people behind with us. We have to be able to continue to do the work of the people of Salem, not shut down and close up shop and say, okay, we'll see you in a month. And I know the city council is meeting every week, and I applaud them for meeting when they're meeting and addressing this head on, but we as a city can definitely chew gum and walk at the same time. So I thank you, Mr. President, for recognizing me.
Thank you. I saw our Council Dominguez had his hand up. Council Dominguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually, from day one, many of you know that I'm in favor of having the ADU pass, but I also in the same condition to listen both sides of the aisle. I think that we have to. This is basically part of our job. I mean, we can not only see one side, and I respect everybody's opinion, but I feel that we need to have some type of compromise if we wanted to have something pass. We wanted to see something happen. We had to allow other people to express their concern. And this is basically, this is a public hearing. And that's part of the reason why I say this is not the right time to have these type of meetings, because we cannot hear everybody's opinions. Me as a city councilor at large, I hear a lot of people calling me in bold position, which they are both legit. We need to make sure that we hear both sides, and we need to make sure that we have a compromise tool at one point so we can see reality in our city. I understand that this crisis that we are right now is going to deeply more the housing crisis that we had before the coronavirus crisis. For that saying, that's why we need to make sure that we have a very deep discussion to make the right decision at the right time, at the right moment. I understand that we need more housing. There's no doubt about it. I think that 100% of the city council body are in agreement that we need to do something. But we need to make sure that we hear everybody concerned. If we don't do that, we're going to jeopardize our democracy. We're going to jeopardize not only our democracy, but the way of people saying things. I think that the R1 zone complaints are very legit. We need to put attention to that. We need to hear their concern. We need to make sure that we really, really do the job the right way. I do not agree. We all do respect with some of the people that say that we have to do it. We had to do it, but we had to do it at the right time, in the right moment. This is very important. I am from a community that needs the most housing here in Salem, but I also understand that we cannot change the character of any given community just for the fact that we need to provide help for other groups. We need to hear both sides of the aisle. We need to make sure that the R1 zone is being completely understandable, that we wanted to have done something in the city that's going to be beneficial for everyone, not only for one side. We need to speak to the landlords, to the owners, the homeowners, who are going to be alleviated by this ordinance if we're going to have it. But we also need to speak with the homeless population. We need to speak with the low-income people. We need to hear everybody in the table. We need to make sure that we provide not only for one group, but for the entire city of Salem. This is Salem. This is not only one group. And I understand that we need to pass something. I am in favor of some ADU, but I want to hear some compromise. I want to hear some solution that benefit the most, that benefit the entire city of Salem. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Smith from the Planning Board.
I just wanted to just add again, just respectfully, I understand the situation we are in currently is unprecedented, but I also want to say that and reiterate what I said last time. This platform in many ways is providing an opportunity for many people to participate who would not otherwise be able to, who may have childcare that they have to go to, who can get on the phone, get on a computer. And then there's other options. People can email their comments in advance. So I want to just understand the idea that, or represent the idea that technology can be very advantageous to allowing more people to participate. Whether they choose to participate is a whole nother story. But I would just like to add that, and I think that's something that shouldn't be dismissed in a lot of these discussions as having a meeting at this time when a lot of people cannot. I don't know about everyone else here, but majority of us are working from home and actually are more challenged, but we're still taking the time because this is important. And so I think what we should be doing is respecting people's time for being here and understanding that we're actually providing an option for people to call in and provide input in a very different way that they would not otherwise be able to do. So that, with that said, I think it would be helpful if we could just move on since it's already been voted and actually get to the point of what we're here for.
Thank you. Councilor Dibble, and then Councilor Prosnowski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree fully with what Matt just said. I think the Zoom platform is something that we should use quite a bit more going forward in our regular meetings. Just for the record, it seems like I'm back online because I can see everybody again, but since Amanda's presentation, halfway through her presentation, my voice has kicked in and out considerably. It's been garbled, and I was disconnected during the process as well.
Thank you. Councilor Prosnowski. Council, you need to unmute yourself, sir.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. President.
No problem.
I'm sure that there's quite a few people watching this now that everybody's kind of stuck at home, and whether they're on this platform or they're watching it on SATV. One of the reasons that I voted to keep this meeting going was for information. One of the questions that I get is, and this goes right to the basics of ADUs, is when we're talking about a standalone ADU, I'm going to be asking the planning department. I'm not sure who's going to be able to answer this question, but if I'm correct, the maximum height on it is supposed to be 18 feet, correct? On a standalone? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so if you have a building that's 18 feet high, what is the footprint of an 800 square foot ADU, which is the maximum size ADU? So what are we talking about? A footprint of about 30 feet by 30 feet, 40 feet by 40 feet? I'm not sure how much of a footprint that would be on somebody's property, and also how far away that standalone has to be from somebody else's property. Thank you.
If I can answer that question real quick, the council, that would be about the size of an average two-car garage. An average two-car garage is about approximately 20-something feet by 20-something feet. So be in that kind of range right there.
Okay.
And a two-car garage is 18. The maximum is a story and a half. So sometimes most two-car garages aren't 18 feet. The only time you get to 18 feet is when they kick up the sidewalls a little bit on the second floor and then put the roof on top, which would then allow you to put the unit up on top if you wanted to put it on the second level. But that's typically the size of it.
And how far away would that structure have to be from somebody else's property line?
That would be a question for Amanda. It depends on zones, but Amanda, could you answer that?
Yeah, it does depend on the zoning district. So in some zones, each property, so in every zone there's a setback required from front, rear, and side yards. So think about the box and then where your house has to be. And that is for both neighbors. And so for you and your structure, let's say you have a 15-foot setback from your property line. So you'd end up, the building's here. Your neighbor also has a 15-foot setback. And so they're over here. And so you look at the two setbacks together to see how far your building is from your neighbors. A lot of buildings in Salem were built prior to zoning, and so they might not comply. So that building might be closer than that middle ground, but it just varies across zones what the setbacks are.
My last question is, if someone is in an R1 district and they have the land available to build a standalone with the proper setbacks, how much does neighborhood input weigh in whether or not the neighbors approve or want to see it or they don't want to see it?
So if the proposed ADU complies with everything outlined in the zoning ordinance, and so that means and they're not requesting any waivers. So if they meet their parking, they meet the square foot, they're not going over 800 square feet, and they're not removing any trees, then they can apply for a building permit. They do not need a special permit. So that means they just go to the building department, they bring their plans, they apply for the application. If they meet all the building code requirements and all the zoning requirements, they just get the permit. The neighbors do not have a hearing to weigh in on that. And so unless that they are waiving, asking for a waiver from the zoning ordinance, would the neighbors be notified and have a hearing process?
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other counselor? Counselor Turiel.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I have a couple of questions tied to some of this because I see different scenarios here. When this first was before us, I was last year, I was thinking that it should be pretty much entirely within a special permit process. And I've come to change that some as I look at this, but I do see, I guess, the three scenarios I see are one is that you're using existing space within your dwelling now to convert to an ADU, like you're taking space and marking it off, or you're doing it with, say, minimal dimensional changes to the primary residence. And I could see being something where, there would be no special permit required. Or if you're taking an existing accessory structure on your property, like a carriage house, a garage, or, when you have a driveway that fits your cars, and if you want to have an unused garage, you want to turn that into an ADU, then I'd see that, you're not changing fundamentally the character of the lot. But as I think about this, and we'll see what the rest of you think, but I think maybe building a standalone ADU on a property, that might be something that still should go through a special permit process, because there you're making a significant visual change to the lot, and that has the most effect on your abutters. If you have a carriage house or something that's already there, or you're just modifying your existing home, that's a different story to me.
Helen.
I hear what everybody has to say on that.
Speaking as an architect and obviously a member of the planning board, I've been asked to design things like this before in other towns, who had ADUs, and it typically is somebody that says, what's going to take to convert my garage into an apartment? And even if the town allows it, the complications and the expense are very high. You have to connect to all existing utilities on the property. There's no waste line, there's no electricity, there's no gas. It's not a cost-effective thing to do. So I think it's really unlikely. It's much more likely to be a connected structure to the existing house, because that's where you're going to get your value for all of that underlying infrastructure. So, or converting within the house. But I can't imagine, who has that amount of property to build a second dwelling unit and meet all of those setbacks? It's just not going to happen very often at all. That's my comment.
Okay. Anyone else? Council Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make sure everyone watching is aware that we already have this on the books for relatives and for caregivers, because a lot of people didn't know that. So they would like this for their family members, and they weren't aware that this already existed. So I want people to know that this is already there in Salem. And I've mentioned before, I have a lot of people reaching out, nervous with the R1s, that you're basically taking that away. I'd like to see if this could go back to the planning department, when it does, and take out the R1 zoning in this, and see how it works, going R2, R3, and then maybe in the future, if they want to revisit it. But for now, I think there's no rush to have to do the R1 neighborhoods and take away for where people invested and they wanted to buy their house in their zone. I think we're making a mistake. My other question is, how many neighboring communities right directly abutting Salem have the same type of ADU ordinance that we're looking to get, as far as having it open to anyone? Does anyone in the planning know that, or Amanda? Say Marblehead, Swampscott, Danvers, Peabody, Beverly, Lynn, do we know what cities have what we're looking to propose here?
Amanda, do you have an answer to that right now?
I don't have the ordinances for the neighboring towns that directly abut us in front of me right now. I have looked at them. And again, I pointed to 37 properties just in the greater Boston area that allow for ADUs without a tenant restriction. So, and that was back in 2018. It may have changed. But for the properties that are directly abutting, I don't know. And Salem's ordinance is unique. It's not similar to other ordinances in that we have these waiver options. You have that two paths, the by right and the waiver. And that is in other communities. And I'm drawing a blank. I want to say it's Marblehead maybe has that option. There's another community close to Salem that has those two paths. And so what we do is we look at best practices from a whole bunch of other communities. And then modify it in a way that makes sense for Salem, and again, through the public hearing process.
Well, that would be something I'd like to find out in the future, to see how many of the neighboring communities actually have what we're looking to get into here. I know others have as far as the caregivers and the relatives, but I'd like to know the direction we're headed, how many people have that, because I think it's kind of unfair to kind of proceed at this point. We have a lot of housing. I know we need housing in Salem, but we are building all over the city, hundreds of apartments.
So I think rushing this right now, I think we should sit back and see what other cities are also doing. And I don't think it's crucial to move forward with this right now with everything going on. But I would like to get some more data with the direct abutters to Salem, what they're doing in reference to what we're trying to propose here. Thank you.
Amanda, could you send us the whole list of the 37 neighboring communities in Greater Metro Boston that have implemented ADUs, if you could, so that way anyone who wants to check them out can check them out.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I sent the city councilors and planning board members a letter, and in that letter, there's a link to that report that was referenced at the last meeting by Amy Dane, and that has a wealth of data and information and best practices from over 100 municipalities in the greater Boston region, and that has that list of the 37 communities and a whole bunch of other data. It's a really great read. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
Well, that's great, but like I said, 37 communities. I'm concerned about the abutters because I do think Salem is we're doing our jobs as far as apartments. We do have the sewage plant. Everything comes into Salem. We provide the power plant for the area. I think we are being good neighbors. So I want to know specifically the abutting towns to Salem. I'm not as much concerned of cities west of Boston, south of Boston. I want to know up here on the North Shore. That would be a lot more for the residents to have an understanding of what's going on and see how their cities are doing with this. Thank you.
Councilor Madore, then Councilor Hapworth. Councilor Madore.
Hey, Mr. Chair. I can answer that question really quick. Beverly and Swampscott both have ADU ordinances by special permit. And in Beverly in particular, it looks like no units have been produced. But even if since the report was written, even if 2 or 3 units have been produced, I think if you ask any homeless family right now, whether that unit offering below market rate rent would help them, I think they would be happy to take it on. So regardless of the number of units being produced, knowing that it takes significant investment to produce just 1 unit, as Helen just mentioned, it would be helping someone who needs a home. So with that, I just want to add that I'm hearing a lot of the same questions. I'm hearing a lot of the same comments. We've had very similar hearings for more than a year now. And I am also hearing that the public doesn't get to speak. The public doesn't get to provide input. So I think it's time for us to minimize the repeated comments, repeated questions, and let the public speak. I see that there's a couple of attendees have chosen to use the raised hand tool to waiting to provide public testimony, and I think we should let them speak.
Okay. Councilor Hapworth first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to potentially move on to inclusionary zoning and allow the public to speak on accessory dwelling units. But just to make one more point regarding neighboring towns, in addition to Beverly and Swampscott, Portsmouth, New Hampshire is another community that has accessory dwelling units, an example of a community that's grown historically appropriately and responsibly in a community that a lot of folks in the city of Salem look to as a model for historic growth. And they've done some great things, very similar to what we're proposing here in accessory dwelling units. And then again, I would love to move on to inclusionary zoning if possible. Thank you.
Anyone else? I guess my question would be, is the will to open up for public comment on this issue first, or should we have the presentation on inclusionary and then take public comment on both? Anyone have a preference? Councilor Turiel.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the last meeting that we had, for this one, we've gotten questions, some of the questions and clarifications taken care of, and I commend the planning department for producing some modifications to clarify some of their points that we had brought up at the last meeting. I would prefer that we My preference would be that we move on and begin the process of the inclusionary zoning ordinance, and then open up public comment and focus on that ordinance for the moment. And then when we continue this, because I expect we'll continue this, we keep both matters open, give people a chance to digest what they've heard tonight and the changes that were brought to us tonight. And then we can move into another session when we schedule for the continuation of this. We can move on to another session and get a lot more work done that way and hear from people on both matters.
Thank you. Anyone else have any preference? Councilor Madore.
Mr. Chair, I would actually prefer hearing from the public before we move on to inclusionary zoning, just because they've waited long enough, and I know some didn't really get to speak the last time. So given that space to do that, and let's just move forward quickly and give them time to speak on both fronts, for both issues.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should just, we'll run through public comment real quick. Public comment will be strictly on the ADU, and if anyone was in the meeting previously and already has made comment, if they have something other to add, if they can make it brief and short, that would be preferable. And so with that, Georgie, if we could start at the top, or Eileen, whoever's taking care of this. And for the members of the public that are participating on Zoom, if you found your raise the hand feature, please raise your hand, and we'll try to run through everyone real quick. And as I realized, as Councilman Madore just stated, we went through everyone who was on the list last time, and we decided to use the raise your hand feature. And I will say that if someone, it's a learning curve for all of us, me included, other than probably Councilor Prosnowski and probably the oldest guy on the screen. And I've participated in more Zoom meetings over the last 3 weeks than I want to care to think about. And so it's the learning curve, and we're all trying to figure it out. But with that, I'll go to Tom Daniels has his hands up before we take up public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor McCarthy. I do notice that there's one person has phoned in to the meeting, and if that individual wishes to make a comment, they can raise their hand by pressing *9 on their phone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's one member of the public that's called in. This must be watching on SATV. So if they wish to make a comment, they can type into their phone the asterisk button, the star button, and the number 9, and that will raise your hand if you want to make a comment. So, Georgie, if you would please go through who wants to make comments about this issue.
All right. Hello, guys. Please state your name and address for the record. If you are on a phone and you raise your hand and then you wish to lower your hand, pressing *9 will also lower your hand. All right. First public commenter, I have Steve.
The host has me muted.
You're unmuted.
You're unmuted.
Thank you. Steve Kapantis, 23 Wisteria Street, Salem, Mass. I hope everybody's well, and I thank everybody for listening to me tonight. I have 2 comments. One, first about public comment. This is a continuation from the last meeting, and at that meeting, you set the time, manner, and place at which public comment would be given. And what was followed for the procedure was you called on us by name or by telephone number. Tonight, you've added this additional feature of having to raise your hand. Although I think maybe for future meetings that aren't continuations, it would be great. You have changed the time, manner, and place. And if you don't think it's important, you actually had to give instructions to one counselor how to use the raise your hand function. So I would suggest that after you're done with raise your hand, you call on everybody also that's online. Second, my comments about the ADU. First, I think it was clear from the mayor's comments and Councilor Terriell's comments that this is not about affordable housing. This is just about the ADU tonight. And we're told we need affordable housing and an ADU is a solution. There is nothing in this ordinance that mentions affordable housing. Furthermore, you're saying, well, if we allow ADUs, then we're going to pass this other ordinance where we're going to use these incentives And then once that's passed, then that will lead to affordable housing. We don't know if it is. If you're serious about affordable housing, then put it in the ordinance. And say, we're going to allow ADUs only for affordable housing and we're going to subsidize it. Don't create 2 or 3 ordinances to get to something that you might want to. What happens if you pass this tonight and then the incentives doesn't? I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next person, I have Mr. Stevens. You're unmuted.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep. No, you're
Please
muted.
state your name and address for the record.
He muted himself again.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay. Steve Stevens and 53182 Beech Grove Drive. And I just wanted to let you guys know I'm not a resident of Salem, but you guys are doing a great job in what you guys are doing. And I like Tim Flynn's comment and everything. And I just want to let you guys know Domingo said a lot of words without really saying any points at all. And Epstein didn't kill himself.
Okay, well, that's enough for that. Thank you.
All right, next participant, I have Nadine Hanscom. You're unmuted.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I just want to say hi. I did not speak at the last meeting. I was unable to figure it out, just so you know that. So this is my first time speaking to you guys, though I have sent some emails. So I want to say hello to the councilors and the planning board. And again, we all know that the current ADU allows for the caregivers and family members to live in our single family homes. What the new ordinance wants to do is take away a choice from the homeowner who wants to live in a single family neighborhood and make these homes into 2-family homes, taking away that choice. Some people choose to live in a single family neighborhood. Some people save money for that lifestyle. Others choose apartment living, or they choose to purchase a 2 or 3-family home to help with a mortgage, and perhaps to keep and use that rental income, which is what my family had done. We bought a 3-family home in Salem. We saved our money. We worked really hard because our end goal was to live in a single family neighborhood. So with that being said, your ordinance wants to take away my choice and many other people's choice that dream of living in a single family neighborhood. And I believe that no person serving on a city board or a council member has the right to change that choice. And if you believe that you are above that, then you should not be in any elected office. Your job is to run the city, not impose your beliefs. And 11 people should not have the power to do that. If you vote yes to change the current ADU ordinance that no one is asking for, remember, a total of 10 people over 3 years have applied and been granted the ADU because it was for a family member or a caregiver. So nobody is asking for this change. Ward 6 has many single-family neighborhoods, and I hope that our council really does right by the families that have saved and chose to live in a single-family neighborhood by voting no. As I have walked these neighborhoods during this pandemic and have spoken to numerous homeowners, not one said they would ever rent to someone they didn't know, nor did they think that this ordinance was good for their neighborhood. Your yes vote, again, takes away that choice. I do not understand how anyone in good conscience can vote yes. I hear the story that people need extra income to live in their homes, but not one person stated that to me. Yet a developer Flipper just bought the house right next door to me that had been vacant for 8 years. And if you know my neighborhood, you know the house I'm talking about. This is what his comment to me was. That's great if an ADU passes. I can have my adult daughter live in the house. I'll give her the house, and then I can make the downstairs another apartment. What a win-win for him. Now I live beside a double house. So my choice of living in a single family neighborhood in one full swoop of you saying yes to an ADU, which he would qualify for, has changed. So I feel that you are not listening to us. And more importantly, you really don't have the right to make that change. I sat by and listened to a planning board member go on and on about we need apartments. I sat on that planning board for 8 years, and I felt I was very fair and impartial. I never imposed my view. I went door knocking, and actually, Council McCarthy, you'll remember when something was going in your neighborhood, how I was so concerned for those neighbors of what was going on. I was against what they were going to do because it was on contaminated land. Yet I changed my mind because every door that I knocked on, I don't get paid on the planning board, told me they wanted that development. So I did what was right for the neighborhood. So I'm telling you, the neighborhood of Ward 6 does not want this. You have no right to change my neighborhood. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I really hope that my council hears me and the neighborhoods loud and clear. Do not change a single-family neighborhood. You don't have the power. You don't have the right. It's a democracy. We saved our money. Please let us live in peace. Again, thank you, and stay safe, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
All right, next public speaker. Phone number ending in 686. You are unmuted.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Carol Carr, 7 River Street. I echo the person that just spoke before me. She is right on the money. I agree with everything she says. And the first speaker, I've forgotten his name. I agree with him. And I like the comments from Councilor Flynn. I'd like to know, too, what communities are nearby that have this type of thing, and really, what is the benefit to us? I know I've already sent emails to all of you, so I won't take up your time. But one other thing is I have lost my internet connection twice, one for 7 minutes at 7:30, and I lost it again at 7:50, and it just came back on now at 8:07. So other people might be having that problem. So I went to my phone in order to make a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next public speaker. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Barwas Abushar, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Okay, my name is Fawaz Abushak. Fuzzy. I'm sorry, I should have wrote Fuzzy, but this is the Zoom thing. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to go fast through a couple of pointers. One, affordable housing public meeting. This has been listed by the League of Women Voters. This is deceiving, this is wrong, this is unacceptable by the Salem League of Women Voters. Now, I know it's not your business, but when some of the councilors shared that with that title, that shouldn't happen. A councilor sharing something on their page should reflect what it is. We know this is not an affordable housing public meeting. So for the League of Women Voters, please respect the residents. If you don't want to be bipartisan, that's your business, but call the meeting what it is. This is zoning about the ADUs and inclusionary and has nothing about affordability. And again, for the councilors who shared it, who I can name them, but it's no big deal. There is no reason for it here. Please, if you're going to share something like this, explain to the constituents it is not about affordable housing. Tell them what you are sharing, because it becomes your responsibility when you do it. And that takes a different dimension. From there, I'm going to go, if one of the comments came earlier, I know you're not furloughed and I know you're still working, so I am. But not everybody has the technology. And this is through you, Mr. President, to the Ward 5 councilor. I'm not going to go back and forth with him, but that's not my intention. My intention to say is, I know you have a job to do, and I know you're doing it, and I know most of you are doing a wonderful job in this time. but also we need to know not everybody has the mean or the ability, especially seniors and minorities. Like the lady just said, the internet is not always connected. Like some people might not even have internet. And I know through the school, we had to connect a lot of people for the home learning that they've been doing. So it's not as common. And with seniors, they're not uncomfortable. They are not comfortable with those forms. And that will make them not speak or not be part of it. This is why, unless it's important, which I don't think this can wait. This absolutely can wait till everybody is comfortable with what's going on. And if they choose not to come and not to comment, that's their choice. But what you're doing now, you are taking choice away from people who do not have the technology or uncomfortable with it. We shouldn't be doing this as a council or for the city in a public meeting. You can do it in your own meetings, which is not open for the public except for comments. I disagree with it, but that's different. A public meeting should be open to 100% of the public. And if we know that some aren't able to do it, we shouldn't be doing it. The third point, this change, and it came before that, so I'm not going to go too much about it. It's changing the zoning in many places, R1 and R2 alike. People, like the lady said, Nadine, God bless her, people paid money for this. When I was looking for my house, I made sure what was the zoning, and I wanted a 2-family, not a 3-family. So, and to some people, to many, they move to special neighborhoods because they are single-family neighborhoods. It is important to some. And this does not keep it the way they intended, unless you are willing to somehow keep their choice and the extra money that they spend to live in that kind of housing and neighborhood. You shouldn't approve this. Especially with, I'm sorry, Mr. President, this is not a 2-door garage. This is not a 20 by 20. This is almost a 30 by 30. 800 square feet is 28.5 by 28.5. To make life easy so people can, instead 30 feet by 30 feet, take a foot from each side. This is not a 2-house garage. And with 18 feet high, that's a whole dwelling. And with all due respect to the architect, maybe to me and to many people, to you, it's not feasible. But for a developer, he can build that and he can charge $1,700, $1,800 a month for it. It costs $100,000. That's 50 months. That's 5 years. You get your money back. And those do not cost $100,000. So when we say it's not going to be likely, yes, to people, residents who live in their houses, that's not going to be something they look for. But for a developer, that is very, very acceptable. And they don't even have to live in there. They just have to put their address in there. Now they have themselves a whole new thing to rent. And we're going into totally different things. I do not support it in any way, form, or shape. Because the other point I'm coming to is the affordability, where the League of Women Voters tried to lie to the people of Salem and tell them this is about affordable housing. It is not. If it is about it, like the other person said, put it in there. Do not go to another committee and another ordinance to do it. This is where you do it. You want it to be about affordability, about helping people, do it right here. And we don't need 10 ordinances just to keep commenting on the same thing. This is not about affordability. This doesn't bring affordability. Those units, and I know they rent. I told you that before in the meeting at the city council, that I know somebody who is renting a down the underneath, like in the basement. He's renting it for $1,600 in the city of Linfield. $1,600 is not affordable in anywhere. And yes, when people need it, they will rent it. It doesn't matter where you put it. The other thing is, and this is my last comment, first part of it is through you, Mr. President, to the Councilor Ward 2. Yeah, we heard a lot of those comments before, but you know what else we did? This was voted down before, yet it's in front of us again to deal with it. So deal with it. Listen again and again, because you're not listening, first of all. The mayor is not listening at all, and she keeps putting it back. Why are we doing this when we just voted it down a few months ago? Not much change. I don't think this should be here. But then again, that's not my decision. So while you're saying we're hearing the same comments, you're hawking us with the same ordinances again and again, because you're not going to take a no until you get it your way. And that goes specifically to the mayor, to Kim Driscoll. Okay, now, the other thing that
Fuzzy, if you would please, limit your comments to me. Do not direct anyone directly, all through me. And if you're gonna make attacks on either the mayor or individual members of this council or the planning board, I'm going to have you muted.
I understand, sir. That's what
through me to me, please.
I did say through you, Mr. President.
Well,
I did say that.
Well, don't make it personal.
Okay, I didn't. That's what I said. Through you, and I'm talking generally about a comment. I'll take it. Okay, anyways, this is the last thing. This is actually to you and through you, because we did speak about this before in the last actual face-to-face meeting we were able to do in the council. And I probably wouldn't expect that you followed on it for the simple fact of what happened after that, which is when we spoke about what other cities and communities did to solve these kind of issues. And we brought Seattle and Indianapolis and Newton, Massachusetts as example. I know you've been beyond busy, so I'm not going to knock you down and I'm not going to attack you, because I know everybody's bucket is full. But what's been happening in many communities is they are looking a second look at the whole city. Not spot zoning, not part this, not part that. They're looking at their whole city. Planning all together, all people involved. What do we want from our city? How we're going to address this? And what is the picture? The whole city goes on the plan, the whole city, the zoning, the everything. And we try to have a vision for Salem, not for Harrison Road, which is my house. No, the whole city. And that should be the way that our city should go at, the vision that the city should go at this point, because we're doing too many here and there and here and there. And I don't think it's working, and I don't think it's going anywhere. So, and just like what happened in Newton, they put it on the ballot, and they have how many units, and all affordable gonna come out? I don't know if you looked at it or not, but they were looking at the old armory site and the old factory area in Newton, and the voters approved it. And they approved it with affordability, with everything. So why don't we do the same? Why? And we discussed this before. Sorry, President, to bring it again, but they weren't part of that, and we came into this. Maybe it's time to stop all this nonsense and wasting time, in my humble opinion. And maybe we need to take a look at our city, how we can improve it, how we can improve the zoning, where we want what, and respect everybody and respect every decision. And I'm pretty sure we can get to a much better picture for the city of Salem if we go in that direction. Thank you, everybody. Stay home, stay strong, and stay safe. God bless you all.
You. Good, Georgie. The next, please.
All right. Last public commenter with their hand raised. Eric Duhame, please state your name and address for the record. You are unmuted.
Hello, Eric Duhame, 15 Simon Street, Salem, Massachusetts. I think it's time to get something passed on this issue. It keeps getting hammered back and forth with one roadblock after another. Plain and simple, in my view, if you want affordable housing, you have to create supply or subsidize housing. If you subsidize housing, you're only giving those subsidies to the lucky few who get those apartments. The law of supply and demand. Once supply of the units approaches the demand, rents will become more affordable. If you choke off supply, like our zoning laws have, rents will continue to rise rapidly. We should be looking for easy wins here. How to create supply with impacting neighbors and community as a whole minimally. I say low-hanging fruit in the R2 and R3 zones. These zones are already accustomed to slightly higher densities. And from listening to planning and zoning meetings, it seems always comes down to off-street parking. It makes sense because the on-street parking is the shared resources between the other families. Allow Salem residences to expand in the existing housing stock as long as they have the off-street parking. Make this a hard requirement. In many cases, 3 and 4 family buildings are already grandfathered into these R2 and R3 zones. So these zones will not change that dramatically. In terms of incentivizing ADUs to be built, I supported the mayor's previous proposal, which the requirement of the building of the owner to be their primary occupancy for at least 2 years to become permanent. The reason for this being, I am in a group of many other homeowners who may not want to risk $120,000, which I've been quoted, to build a unit. People's living arrangements change. Households grow and shrink. I would not want to be forced to occupy a larger unit than I need to just to not have it destroyed just to not have to destroy the ADU after I've already constructed it. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Georgie, do I see 5 more people have their hands raised?
2.
Okay, thank you.
Next person. I have Pat Gozemba. You are unmuted. Pat, you might be muted on your end, okay?
Thank you. That work?
Yep.
We got it.
Thank you very much. My name is Pat Gazemba. I live in Salem Willows on 17 Sutton Ave. And I want to just chime in and say that I'm really very grateful to the City Council and to the Planning Board for all of the careful work that you've done on the accessory dwelling units. And I'm really hoping that with this new platform, Zoom, you will take advantage of the opportunity that so many of us have to chime in and express our opinions. And I think that both the City Council and the Planning Board have been at this for a long time. And my request tonight is that you vote on this issue tonight and not defer it further. Thank you.
And I will say for the record, Pat didn't say this, but she is a resident of Salem, of the Willows, but she also happens to spend 4 to 5 months a year in Hawaii, and Pat is chiming in from Hawaii. She's kind of stuck there right now, so but Pat is in Hawaii. It's just so to show you the broad reach of the availability of this platform. So Georgie, if we could continue, please.
All right, last person I see with their hand raised, please state your name and address for the record. Bonnie Bain, you are unmuted.
Hi, I am at 12 Carlton Street, and the name is Bonnie Bain Massey. And I just want to go on record on saying how much I appreciate these meetings. I certainly expect my leaders to be having this particular conversation now more than ever. My family and others are facing really uncertain financial times, and I just appreciate that these meetings have been accessible and that I can get educated and involved. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's in the participants? Just click on them real quick. For the attendees that wants to make a comment at this for the matter in front of us. Bonnie just spoke, so no one else, Georgie, that we're showing?
Nope, no more hands are raised.
Okay. But I show 2 panelists that have their hands up. Can we, and they don't need to have their hands up. Can we get rid of those?
Yep.
Thank you. Unless someone's got their hand up, I'm not seeing them. So that's all the comment from the public. Anyone else have anything to say? Council Sergeant.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. Don't want to repeat things I've said before. But just quickly, besides Lynn, Salem has probably we have the most affordable housing and the most rental units on the North Shore. And I believe these ADUs were a good idea for our family and caregivers. But I think we should limit it to that. And keep in mind that we have a lot more units still permitted, still ready to be built. In Salem, there's a lot going on, as you can see as you drive around town. The other thing I want to mention is that it's cheaper to build an ADU when you build in a new house. So I believe a lot of people will take advantage when they're building a new house to put an ADU in then. And we may not see so many, we don't have much one-family land left anyways, but those built will be less likely to be really one-family houses. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do I see any motions, or should we just go right into the presentation for the next matter? Councilor Turio.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd say there's no motion necessary, and since you run the meeting, just we can start with the presentation.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion on this matter. For the record, I just want to say one thing. There's a lot of discussion that's been going back and forth on all of this. And just to put some of the things in perspective, I know that there's a lot of concern of what's going on in the world. It's unprecedented. But at the same time, I do understand and I respect anyone who happens to live in an R1 and the investment they've made. But at the same time, is when you look at the way that our housing market is made up, and when you look at the population trends, and you realize that in the sometime right around the Great Depression, before World War I, Salem was at its highest population, which is probably even to what it is now. And what's the biggest difference is the fact that we have more housing, but we have all our family units have now gotten smaller. And I can't think, if you look at someone who may own a single family home for whatever reason, and you look at what we're doing right now for our seniors, and I know it's not indicative of every senior, but if there's a senior out there that all of a sudden now needs a phone call to check on them, or now needs a shopper to go shopping for them because their family, who would normally be able to come and help them, is now stuck in a state like New York where they're in lockdown and can't come and visit and can't come to go shopping or can't come to check in on their relatives. And it's not for every instant. That's why I look at this as it's not going to be an opportunity that every R1 is, or every home in Salem is going to put an in-law apartment in and turn it into an ADU. It's a conversation that really we need to really be thoughtful about. But when you put it into perspective, when you look at a pandemic and the ability for people to have options, because wouldn't it be great if someone could still socially distance themselves from you and be in a basement apartment, but still have the ability to check on you, and then when you're going shopping, go pick up something for them at the same time. And if you're in a neighborhood that, you happen to live in a house that used to have your husband and 6 kids, and now you're living in a house by yourself, it's just something to put into perspective in today's what we're looking at. And I don't think it's going to be and when you look at the primary first thing on what's listed is owner occupied, and 50% of the homes in Salem are not owner occupied. So you take 50% right off the top. Doesn't matter what zone they're in. So it's an interesting question. So while that being said, we're going to go to the next matter. Amanda, if you could present, please. Or do you want to say something first to the mayor about the next matter? I'll leave it to Amanda if no one has anything. Well, Tom has his hand up too. All right, Tom, I'll let you go first.
Thank you, thank you, Councilor McCarthy. Just briefly, I just want to put this, restate what I had said at the brief comments at the first meeting of the joint public hearing that the work on the inclusionary zoning has been quite extensive. This work goes back over 2 years ago where we were trying to think about how to craft a smart inclusionary zoning ordinance for Salem that was just not a generic ordinance. We applied for some grant funding from the state and were awarded that funding, which led to us working with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. That work started in the fall of 2018 with initial meetings with Amanda and MAPC staff. We were also meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. We had a large public forum a little bit over a year ago, as well as other public discussions of inclusionary zoning specifically, as well as other affordable housing strategies. In addition to the public conversations that we were having citywide and conversations with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, our team of advisors, local advisors working on inclusionary zoning, were providing information to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council staff, who are also looking at best practices and data. So just want to emphasize that this whole process has been has had extensive engagement to crafting this ordinance, that it's something that's tailored to Salem's market. It's been informed by data that included local housing advocates, housing developers, a host of different folks. So just want to let you know there's been a lot of work to bring it up to this point. And I want to thank Amanda just at the outset for the tremendous work she's done throughout this over a year-long process. And just very pleased that we're able to present this tonight after all the work that's gone into it. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, Councilor Dibble had his hand up. I'm not sure why. Councilor Dibble, before Amanda's presentation.
Yeah, very briefly, I just wanted to try to point out. I have my phone on. Let me mute this here. Okay. I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. I've been having trouble hearing through my audio, so I connected by way of telephone. That's working out great. So sorry for switching the wrong buttons just now. I just wanted to point out that this is a separate matter, and I'm absolutely okay with you opening it during the ADU, but for the public, we should state what it is and read the documents and open this meeting properly, and we can do both at the same time, but this is a separate matter, and you haven't introduced it yet. Thank you, Mr. President.
Amanda's just about to. If for the record, if you want me to, we're going to take up the matter of.
Thank you.
Move to waive the reading of the entire ordinance.
It wasn't. Thank you.
We have a zoning ordinance relative to.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Eileen. Could you read that, please, just to lean in a little bit?
It was just a zoning ordinance relative to inclusionary housing, and they waived the reading.
Thank you. Amanda, if you would, please, for the record.
Thank you. Amanda Chincola, planner with the City of Salem. Georgie, could you bring the PowerPoint back up, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So inclusionary zoning or inclusionary housing, it's a policy that requires a portion of new housing units and new development to be affordable. Affordable means different things to different people. And so I want to go over some of those basic terms because they're really important to this ordinance. Housing is considered affordable when it costs 30% or less than a household's income. So that's the people in the home and not paying more than 30% of their income on housing. But that comes in several forms. There's a kind of affordable housing called subsidized housing, and that's the kind of housing you would see through a housing authority. There's also naturally occurring affordable housing, and that's what you would see through something such as an accessory dwelling unit that just occurs naturally without a restriction. There's also income restricted housing. that's restricted to be affordable. Inclusionary zoning would require a portion of the units to be income restricted housing. So that's the kind of affordability we're talking about with this ordinance. That means that the affordable unit is restricted to households who do not earn over a set income level. And different inclusionary zoning ordinances play with that income level. You can change it up, but you're looking at a set income level. And then the rent is based on 30% of whatever that income level is. So the discussion of affordable housing in general and inclusionary zoning, it can be very jargony. And so that's where I'm going to talk about these basic terms. Georgie, could you please go to the next slide? So the ordinance was submitted with a 2-page sheet that looks like the image on the right, and that's available again with the submittal of the ordinance. And this shows just the first page of that 2-pager. That outlines some common use terms to describe housing affordability. So you can use that document as a cheat sheet and refer back to it. It talks about the various types of affordability. It talks about income limits and definitions. One of the definitions one of the words we're going to talk about a lot is area median income. And you'll hear me say AMI. I'm going to try to say area median income, but as planners, we just use a lot of acronyms. But area median income is used to determine a household's eligibility for income restricted affordable housing. The area is based on the Metropolitan Statistical Area. It's called an MSA. So in that map you see on here, that shaded green area is the Metropolitan Statistical Area that Salem's in. It's huge. It includes Boston, it includes parts of New Hampshire. That's the MSA, and that's our area. The median income, by definition, is what is half. So half of the people in that shaded area make more, and half of the people make less. That's the area median income. In 2019, that shaded green area's median income was $113,300. Half of the people made that much money, half of the households. And by household, I mean the people in the household together. However, Salem's median income, and that's the local median income in Salem, is $65,528. You see, it's quite a bit different. You're talking about almost $30,000, $40,000 difference. It's about 60% of the area median income. Georgie, can you go to the next slide, please? So households are considered to be low to moderate income if they earn 80% of the area median income or less. So if you earn 80% of that $113,000 number, then you are considered a low to moderate income household. So this chart shows what 80% of the area median income looks like compared to 60% of the area median income. It shows what a household can earn to qualify for housing that's restricted to those income levels, and then what the maximum rent or sale price could be for that unit for it to be considered affordable. And that's again based on 30% of that income. So it uses the threshold that a household should not be paying more than 30% of their income on housing. And you can see that the formula changes based on household size. And the reason behind that is because a larger household has more expenses than a smaller household. So I think you have more mouths to feed, more bodies to clothe, that sort of thing, more healthcare to provide for. So for an example, a 3-person household would qualify for an affordable unit at 80% area median income if they do not earn more than $80,300. And that unit could not rent for more than $2,007, and that includes utilities. And if it were for sale, that unit could not be sold for more than $226,200 because that's what the household could afford. Whereas a 3-person household at 60% area median income cannot earn more than $64,020, and their unit could not be rented for more than $1,600, including utilities, or sold for more than $150,200. So that 60% AMI is just more reflective of Salem's needs. And again, that's just really important to keep in your mind as we talk about this inclusionary housing ordinance. And so you see the difference is about $300 per unit. In the difference between a market rate unit and a unit at 80% is also around $300. If you think about a market rate unit that's available in Salem. Georgie, could you change the slide? Local action units, I'm going to go over real quick to give you an idea of the kind of housing that's been permitted in Salem. A local action unit is an income restricted unit or a subsidized unit that has been created through local action. And that could be a special permit process or through inclusionary zoning. Local action units end up on the subsidized housing inventory. So that's how when folks say that Salem has X percent of affordable housing, they're looking at the subsidized housing inventory. To be on that list, you need to qualify, and a local action unit qualifies. So without an inclusionary zoning ordinance, Salem does not have an inclusionary zoning ordinance on the books. 218 local action units have been permitted since 2008. Many of those have been permitted through the planning board as they've been able to negotiate new development to be set aside 10% as affordable. And they've been setting aside 10% as affordable at 80% area median income. And some of these units have been created through entities such as the North Shore CDC or the St. Joe's Project is included in there. And so there are other mixes that have added to those units, but in total, this is what we've had since 2008. And of them, 91 of the local action units have been built, 60 are under construction, 67 have been permitted and are pending construction. So that's just a flavor of what's happened thus far. Georgie, could you flip the slide? Thank you. So now that we've gone through that, we're going to talk about inclusionary zoning. As I mentioned before, inclusionary zoning is a policy that requires a percentage of new housing units to be affordable as income restricted affordability. Similar to the ordinance we were previously speaking to, this is not a new or novel idea. There are close to 900 communities across the country and more than 100 in Massachusetts that have some form of inclusionary zoning. And the policies are used in cities of all sizes and towns. And the reason it's so popular is because it relies on private developers to create affordable housing with no public subsidy. So that's key. We're asking for the private market, or in this case, requiring the private market to provide a public good, and that's affordable housing. But the affordable housing units cost just as much to build as the market rate units. So it's just critical that we strike a balance between meeting Salem's affordability goals and being financially feasible. And so when Tom mentioned that we had stakeholder interviews and went through a really long process that was data-driven, it's because we're trying to strike that balance. Georgie, can you go to the next slide? So this is talking about finances, the slide. And bear with me here, because I'm going to try to get this through. And if you have any questions on it or need me to repeat it at the end, I'm happy to do that because it's a lot. But in order to build a housing development, a developer has to get their project financed by a lender. So just like when you're buying a home, you need to go to a lender. Builders need to do that too. These images in the narrative text are pulled from a housing toolkit prepared by the National Multifamily Housing Council. And they're very simplified. It's just a general idea to show an example of how an inclusionary policy impacts the financing of a project. So the first image on the left shows a rule of thumb that a $100 reduction in monthly rent supports about $20,000 in debt. And that's assuming a 30-year mortgage with an interest rate of 5%, which again, that's general, it fluctuates, but just sticking with that general. That second image shows an example that compares a policy that requires 15% of the units in a new development to be affordable at 80% of the area median income. And it compares it to a policy that requires 10% of the units to be affordable at 60% of the area median income. So the chart on the right uses that same rule of thumb that for every $100 off in rent, there's a $20,000 in debt, but it assumes a $200 rent reduction per unit at 80%. So 200, if you follow me here, 200 times 30 units, 30 affordable units would result in a $6,000 rent reduction. And that results in a $1.2 million financing gap. Now, we know the difference between 80% and 60% rent in Salem is at least $300, right around there. The difference between a market rate and 80% unit is also about $300. So if we require too much affordability, we're requiring the developer raising the rents for the market rate units to make the project financially infeasible, or if they can't get the project financed, they're just going to cancel it altogether. Both scenarios undermine affordability, so it's that balancing act. Again, these images are just broad examples. The number of units shown are not reflective of a typical Salem project. We don't normally have giant projects that create 30 affordable units. So there are a lot of variables to consider. Georgie, can you go to the next slide, please? So rather than using that really broad model, we tailored it specifically to Salem. The Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, worked with the city to develop a financial feasibility model to test market implications of various inclusionary zoning scenarios. So the model is based on a pro forma analysis that considered a housing market from the Warren Group, the U.S. Census Bureau, as well as interviews with Salem residents, local housing experts, local lenders, developers, land use board members. And all of these inputs were added to this financial model to see what we could do, what that balancing act would lead to. So the inputs you can see on the screen here, and that's just a flavor to give you some of the inputs that we looked at. You know, what is the cost for operating the unit? How much does it cost to build a parking space? What are the financing requirements? What internal rate of return is a lender looking for the project to fly in Salem, for it to work? So every percentage, every threshold proposed in this ordinance has been carefully calculated and analyzed and compared to best practices from other communities. I also want to note that MAPC helped draft this ordinance, and their staff have a lot of experience writing ordinances for communities throughout the North Shore. It's also been reviewed by the chair of the zoning board. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board has reviewed it. The city solicitor has reviewed it, and our legal counsel has reviewed it. The zoning enforcement officer has received it before submitting it to the city council. So with that, I'm going to go through the nuts and bolts of the actual ordinance. Georgie, can you? Thank you. So there are a lot of provisions that you can consider with an inclusionary zoning ordinance. And again, that's what's really cool about these ordinances is you can play with any of these factors to fit your local community. So I'm going to go into more detail about, some nuanced things in our ordinance, such as fractional units, the adaptive reuse special permit at another meeting. At this one, I really wanted to hit the highlights and give you the basic outline of the ordinance. So first, geography. Some communities target specific locations for inclusionary zoning, and others require it to be citywide. In Salem, we're requiring it to be citywide. So no matter where you are in the city, you have to, this ordinance applies to you or to new development. And then choice. Some communities require that the units be affordable, while others offer incentives and let developers choose whether they want to opt in. Salem's ordinance is proposed to be mandatory. The developer does not have a choice. They have to provide the affordable units. And then thresholds and size. Actually, Georgie, can you click again? I think I have the bolded things. Oh, there you go. So that's citywide, mandatory. You can go through all of them. So for thresholds and project size, that's the minimum development size that's used to trigger the inclusionary housing ordinance. It ranges from 0 to 50 units. Most policies in the North Shore have 6 to 10 unit minimum. In Salem, we're proposing 6 units, and that's consistent with the threshold for a site plan review. The income target is the affordability level. 60 to 80% is most frequently targeted. Really, in the North Shore, 80% is most frequently targeted. But in Salem, we've heard 60% is what we need to target. That's where Salem's needs are. And so the proposed ordinance has it targeted at 60% area median income. The number of units, that's how many new units will be required to be affordable. Most often, it's set as a percentage. And so you build 100 units. If it's 10%, 10 units have to be affordable. And what we're proposing is the units, the number to be 10%. And then there's also a fractional option. So if you're required to build 10.1 units, that 0.1, the ordinance gives the developer an option. They could either build another unit, or they could pay for the fraction of the unit. Again, I'm going to talk about that calculation and go into more details at a future meeting, but we're just scooping up those fractions in some form. Affordability length is how long is it required to be affordable. Most communities require between 30 and 99 years. 99 years is considered perpetuity. It's to the greatest extent we can. And so this ordinance proposes 99 years. And then for alternatives is a combination of different alternatives can be offered to accommodate different development scenarios. A lot of communities will use off-site construction, and that means that a developer can choose to build their affordable units on another location, or a fee in lieu. That means that a developer could pay money instead of building the affordable units. Salem's ordinance is quite unique in that it requires the units to be built on site and does not provide a fee in lieu option for the whole numbers, just those fractions. Staff, I couldn't find another community on the North Shore that doesn't provide an alternative. And so we would get affordable units out of this. It's very progressive. And then incentives offered in exchange for the affordable housing to encourage developers to exceed what's required or to make sure that the project pencils out. In this case, it's because we are requiring 10% of the units take essentially a $600 deduction in what they could get for a market rate rent, about, give or take. And so to make up for that cost and make sure the project can still be financed and is still feasible, we are proposing a 25% density bonus, special permit for so these other things are by special permit. 25% density bonus would be by right. And then the developer could request a special permit from the planning board to get up to to get parking relief and dimensional relief to a special permit. And that looks like a 20% reduction in setback and an increase by 1 story, but not in height. And the idea there is you can allow for more density, but then you're squeezing a balloon within these dimensions, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility. But the developer an applicant would need to prove to the planning board that they need that setback reduction by up to 20% in order to accommodate the development in those 25% density units. Georgie, can you go to the next slide, please? So I'm bringing you back to this slide because, we could ask for a higher percentage of affordable units, as other communities have. And that would mean we'd have to serve a higher income level. So when we tested this ordinance, with those incentives, we could get up to 15% of the units affordable, but that would be at 80% area median income. The reason we're proposing it to be 10% is because we want to hit that 60% AMI range and require the deeper level of affordability with no opt-out options. So without a fee in lieu, without off-site units, we want equitable units to be built. So at a future meeting, again, I'll discuss the special permit option, give you more detail about any other sections that you want. If you're interested, we could also bring in MAPC staff to walk through the financial model in more detail, because what I gave you was a really broad overview. But that concludes my presentation for tonight. I just wanted to get you the nuts and bolts, the flavor of the ordinance. But if you have any questions or you need additional information, I'm happy to answer them. If I can't get the answers for you tonight, then I'll work on getting them to you between the meetings. So thank you.
Thank you, Georgie, for getting that off. Any members of the city council, questions for Amanda? Council Turiel has his hand up. Council Turiel.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. So my question, I apologize for the background noise. My printer is spitting out stuff behind me somewhere there in the custom house. Can you explain for us the details of a density bonus? Which it would be a by right.
Right. So the density bonus means that if a developer was allowed, or if a zoning district allowed a parcel to be built out at, you could build 10 units on that property. And that's based on their dimensional requirements. There's a lot area per dwelling unit that's required, because you can have so many dwelling units per the size of that lot. It makes it so you can have 25% more dwelling units. So just by right, if you could have 10 units, now you can have 25% more.
All right, I'm all set.
Thank you. Any other member of the city council? Councilor Hapworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the language within the ordinance states that within 1 mile of the train station, you can have a parking reduction. You can apply for a parking reduction. Is it going to say within I think it was brought up by, I believe it was Steve Pants brought up the fact that is this any train station, or is it a specific train station with a potentially at some point in the future a second a South Salem train station coming online? Just to clarify, would that train station be also things within developments within 1 mile? Would those qualify for that parking reduction as well under the current draft ordinance?
Under the current draft ordinance, any train station that is built and running would qualify.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other member of the council? Seeing none. Any member of the planning board? Councilor Hapworth.
Sorry, I remember my second question. I know you and I have talked about this, Amanda, but the 10% and 60%. I think first of all, I think 60% is an incredibly aggressive benchmark to set, and you mentioned that multiple times, and I think it's something that's very impressive if we were able to get that accomplished. The 10%, I guess, is where I continue to go back and forth on, and I wonder, it's a very round number, and I wonder, is there in your opinion, what's the furthest we could push that benchmark forward and maintain viability for development to continue to happen in Salem? Is there? I know you ran through the numbers several different ways. I wonder what's the furthest we can push that forward realistically.
So the 10% is a very round number, and that's there's intent to that. So when we looked at it, we wanted to make sure that the ordinance would be easy for anybody to read and to calculate. And so we said at absolute minimum, this ordinance has to provide at least 10%. We want to get as much as possible, as deep as possible, but no less than 10%. And so that was the starting base. And we played with it a little bit with the financial model. We played with it a lot. And there was one model where we could get more units, but it would have to be, again, a portion. You could tier it, but you would have to have some of those units or most of those units be at 80%. We weren't able to get it any lower than 60% AMI without increasing that density bonus, and just didn't feel that would be appropriate. And so, this at 10% with the 25% density bonus at 60% AMI is the furthest that I'd be comfortable recommending.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Madore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Amanda. I think we talked about, it's been so long since I remember discussing this at an Affordable Housing Trust meeting, but I think we talked about having two different requirements for rentals and home ownership. Can you remind me what was the reasoning for making it just across the board requirement, no distinguish between the two?
Thank you. Most communities who require inclusionary zoning ordinances for ownership have a higher affordability level for those ownership units. And that's where we started at, was ownership units would be at 80% area median income. That's before it got submitted to the city council. But the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board really pushed to get the deepest levels of affordability for ownership as well. And so we included some provisions in here to create flexibility on the back end. The concern is a household at 60% area median income going to qualify for a mortgage? Because the last thing we want is for affordable units to be created and for them to sit vacant, because lenders will not approve the household to occupy them. And so if you look under section 5.4.6 of the ordinance, it goes to the resident selection and marketing plan for the affordable units. Number 2 there states that if the applicant's agent is unable to find an eligible home buyer within 180 days of the marketing the unit in accordance with the affirmative fair housing marketing plan, and that's per requirements from the Department of Housing and Community Development, then the up to 80% area median income upon approval of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. So there's a safeguard. It says, you have to try, you have to do all the marketing requirements, and then you have to demonstrate that to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. And if you can demonstrate to them that you tried and you can't occupy it, then you can bump it up to 80% area median income.
Thank you. It's all coming back to me now. I have a second question, Mr. Chair, through you. So I'm a little bit concerned about Salem potentially dipping below the 10% for subsidized housing inventory after the 2020 census. Is there anything we could add to this ordinance to maybe strengthen it against any potential 40B projects? I don't know if that's been discussed at a housing trust meeting recently, but that's something that I always think about, that we're doing what we can now, but in maybe a year's time, we might be subject to 40B projects if we don't do enough. So is there maybe something more incentives to pick up the pace for affordable housing unit production, given that we are going to have an economic downturn, at least for this year? So I'm just worried about dipping below that 10% come 2021 or 2022. Thank you. Uh-oh, did we lose you, Amanda?
No, she's still there.
No, thank you. Yeah, you could add in more a higher density bonus, but if that's the will of the council, then we'll get those numbers back to you. But I mean, when we've tested it and asked folks through interviews, focus groups, and meetings, it didn't appear that there was a whole lot of support for a greater density bonus.
Tom Daniels has a hand up. Tom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just also adding in it, there are some other housing units that add to the subsidized housing inventory that are produced by our nonprofit housing development partners, such as Harbor Light and the North Shore Community Development Coalition. So to the extent that those entities or others are producing affordable units, that also helps to keep us above the 10%. So the CDC has filed and is going through the planning board process now for the Immaculate Conception St. James schools, and those will add additional units to the inventory. The denominator is also increasing too with the units that go up, but it's in addition to the inclusionary zoning. It's another way we get them is through our other housing development partners.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Carol, and then Councilor Dibble.
I was wondering, is affordability based on the number of affordable units that need to be provided? Is that based before or after the density bonus?
After the density bonus.
Thank you.
It's a good question. Councilor Dibble.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I've sat through the last year or so as a member of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, and I've heard endless number of meetings on this whole topic. I think this ordinance will make a good, positive impact to the people who really need this type of housing. I don't think we're doing enough. Amanda, you shared, through you, Mr. Chair, Amanda, you shared some numbers under the local action units. 91 have been built, 60 are under construction, and 67 are permitted, being a total of 218 so far. Those are great numbers. That's 218 units that will have a little bit of affordability, but it's really not affordable at all. At 10%, at 80% of the Boston income level, the AMI that we're calling it, it's not really Salem's income level. We're talking about Boston and Boxford and the whole region. So, and you gave those numbers tonight, so I appreciate that, the difference between the whole region and what Salem's AMI is. It's quite different. So what we have been building, these 218 units so far, they're not really affordable at all because 10% of these units going into the building at 80%, when you consider Salem's income level, it brings it up to 93%, and it's not affordable at all. 93 and 100% are really close together in my book. So talking and bringing it down to 60% is really the direction that we need to go. 80% doesn't cut it for me. Okay, a couple more little points. Amanda, you shared, through you, Mr. President, Amanda, you shared some numbers on that it would include the housing cost at 30% of the family income level. I'm wondering if that includes utilities, the property tax, sewer and water, especially the property tax. Is that included in the cost of the housing, or is it just the actual rent or mortgage on the house?
For the for sale units, it does include the property tax. It also includes interest rate and everything else that would be bundled in, utilities. It's a calculation that runs through total housing costs. And for rentals, it includes utilities. It doesn't include property tax because that's absorbed within the rent.
Sure, that's included in the rent. Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I think the ordinance, earlier you said that the threshold was at 6 units. The ordinance should, and again, I haven't time to dive into the whole final version of this ordinance because I've been busy doing a lot of other things in this little emergency that we're having right now, big emergency we're having. But the ordinance clearly needs to say 6 or more units and not 6 that you said earlier. I'm not sure which it says. Do you know which it says?
Applies to 6 or more.
Yeah, it clearly needs to say 6 or more. And earlier tonight in the presentation, the slideshow, it said 6 was the threshold. All right, next question. At 10%, it's just not enough units that we're building. It's simply not enough. We need to have more than 10%. Maybe it's 12% because, as a couple of counselors just said a few minutes ago, we don't want to see our threshold go down to below 10% citywide. So I think maybe we boost up a little bit. I know 15, I think it was Peabody that tried for 20%. They couldn't make the numbers line up, so they dropped it back down to 15%. But even if we were at 12%, we're going above the minimum 10%. We don't want to drop down below 10%. So I'm recommending maybe 12%, if that makes sense, Amanda. I know Peabody was looking at 15, but I think we need to be at some, I don't know what the number is, but we need to be at some number above 10%. Also, the 25% density bonus by right concerns me. I don't think it should be by right, as I think the Ward 5 counselor said, or somebody else said, but that clearly should not be by right. And I'm wondering if 25% might be too much, because if we look at the numbers, say it's 200 units that are being proposed, and we just had 2 developments proposed up on Highland Avenue for 180 units or 200 units first, and then 220 units behind it. So let's say 200 units. That would be 200, instead of 200 units, they'll be able to build, the developer will be able to take advantage of this and build 250 units. And then on top of that, if we give a parking relief and other special permits, the setback and other things happening, I'm wondering if we're being too generous on both the density bonus, the parking relief, on, and just the number of units might go way, way up. So we need to really have a good we need to have an in-depth conversation on this and get this thing passed, because what we're doing right now, we're not doing anything right now with a 10% at 80%. That just doesn't work. Those units are not truly affordable. We can talk about the 200 units that we've just built, but they're not affordable. We need to get this thing passed, but we also need to get it right. And I think we can do it in this meeting, or maybe one more meeting. This needs to pass, but we also need to get it right. What we're doing right now doesn't work in my book. Lastly, a developer will take advantage of this strongly. And I'm hesitant on passing this with the wording here. We need to correct this wording. But the 180 days to market this, to market the unit, the wording needs to be changed significantly. Otherwise, the developer might get his 25% more units and build 250 instead of 200 units if it was proposed at 200. So he's going to get quite a few more, or the developer is going to get quite a few more units as part of this ordinance being allowed on his development project. I'm not going to jump back into the parking and other issues. I'm just talking about the units themselves. The developer is going to be required to market the unit for 180 days under this ordinance. Well, they might start marketing this before the unit is even built and ready to go. So the marketing takes place, the developer gets the additional units ahead of time. Then when the unit is actually, he goes ahead and markets it. And then when it's actually time to sell this unit, they can just sell it at the full price. So boom, instantly there's no affordable units at all. So we need to be careful on that wording. That one really concerns me. Other than that, good job, Amanda and Tom, on this. I think the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board did good work and a lot of input onto this. But Amanda, you carried the ball on this, so congratulations, good job. This is going to be a good thing for Salem. We just need to tweak it and get it right. This one has my support. The ADUs is a different matter. Thank you. The ADU, while I'm talking, the ADU does really nothing for affordable units. This one, we need to pass now because this has real impacts immediately. Thank you.
Counselor, I suggest you put your suggestions into some sort of email or something and forward them along to Amanda at some point so she can get all your thoughts and concerns and try to address them. Before I recognize Council Medora, the mayor has her hand up, and look, she has the little hand thing up in the corner of her screen. So I'm going to allow the mayor to weigh in at this point as well, too. Mayor Driscoll, if you would, please.
Thank you, Councilor. I just wanted to make sure as we're thinking about this ordinance, this inclusionary housing ordinance, we weigh a couple of factors in our mind. We've been working on this tool for just about a year trying to make sure that this was tailored to meet Salem's needs. We know the planning board's doing a great job reviewing projects and has included a 10% requirement for affordable housing for all the new units that are happening in our community. But we also know that in order to meet Salem's income thresholds, a lower percentage of affordability is necessary, closer to 60%. I want to be clear when I'm saying that. All of the units that have been created at 80% are rented. Many of them have waiting lists and more demand than there are units available. So I don't think it's completely fair to say 80% is doing nothing. It's just a different income level. And we know that we have more people here that are making closer to that 60% of income when you start thinking about trying to make sure someone's rent is no more than 30% of their income. So wanting to keep folks in a housing stable environment with these properties. We tried to look at existing data that we had relative to the market, what it costs to build units. We've talked a little bit about this before, that creating a unit, requires the cost of the land, the cost of the construction, and those are the two biggest factors in why building housing is so expensive, because land is expensive in Salem, construction costs are high, and that really starts to frame out why it's difficult to have a threshold that might be more than a 10% in terms of the set aside, and deeper than a 60% in terms of the income restrictions. And looking around at other communities, it's what we want to do, and we're wanting to do that to sort of get a look at what's Peabody doing, what's Beverly doing. I also think it's important to realize none of those cities have such strict guidelines as we're proposing. And by that, I mean, they do allow payments. You can offer dollars instead of building units. Oftentimes you can provide off-site units. We're trying to be really strict and honor the goal here, which is creating new housing, allowing new housing to be created, recognizing that where we've had new housing, the old Flintan site, the Salem Suede site that's under construction, those were eyesores. They were health hazards. They were not producing anything positive to our community. Most of the new housing that's been developed in Salem is redevelopment of vacant, blighted sites. So I think it's something we should celebrate, not hold up as something that's bad for our community, and recognize that as this tool, we're creating affordable housing with somebody else's money. If it's only one unit, it's not any public dollars or subsidies that went in to create that unit. And this inclusionary zoning ordinance is designed to make sure that we're hitting the affordability needs that we have to for our community, that we're allowing housing to get developed. Those are important sites to have redeveloped. I think they're beneficial to neighborhoods to see good things going on there, while at the same time recognizing we want to have as much affordability as we can. So, we'd love to have higher percentages of numbers of units and lower percentages in terms of income, but I don't think we want to stop housing development. Everything that we've developed so far was pre-COVID-19. I also want to make sure, we sort of caution ourselves to change it now and to start amending this when, frankly, we don't even know what the new economy is going to look like. I think gets a little risky. This might be a little risky, quite honestly, in the new normal post-COVID. So I hope, I'm sensing a lot of support for these concepts. And what I hope is we don't start to pick away at these numbers so much, trying to find perfect. And in fact, we may end up hurting our overall housing development within the city. And if we don't create new housing, we are going to do nothing to address the affordable housing needs of our community. There's a supply and demand comment that was made earlier that I 100% agree with. We're a desirable city. People want to live here. If we don't build more housing, it's only going to make the housing that is here more expensive and less affordable to many of the families who live here, older adults who want to remain here, and people who work here on a regular basis. So thank you for your hard work reviewing this, and hopefully it is something that we can put in place. Once we close these public hearings, whenever it is, there's still a very long process after that. The planning board would have to make a recommendation, and followed by the council having to act at 2 council meetings. So at best, we're looking at summer before anything even gets approved. And I'm hopeful that folks realize we want to try and be judicious in our timing of this. We want to be judicious in our review of these things, but ultimately we'd like to get these done in this fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Dorr had her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to first offer some clarification about my comments earlier about the 10%. What I was referring to with the 10% is the number that the state requires us to have as affordable housing is that 10%, also known as the subsidized housing inventory. The 10% in the proposed ordinance is what we are requiring developers to build. So there's a huge difference, even though they're the same number. So what other communities are requiring developers to build, the 20 to 50% that I heard, that's a completely different number from the 10% that the state requires us to have. So if we dip below the 10%, any developer can come in and override local zoning and build 40B, Chapter 40B comprehensive permit projects. And we lose complete local control with those projects. So I just want to clarify that. And then I also just really want to thank Amanda for all the work she's done so far. I agree with Councilor Dibble that I've also sat on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund board for 2 years, and she's put in her heart and soul into this work. And she has prepared all the materials, making all of our meetings so effortless. And I know this issue is personal to her, and I just really want to commend her for all the excellent work that she's done so far. And we could not have gotten this far without all her work. And I do want to make sure we thank her for all her work. But thank you, Amanda.
We're all clapping, Amanda, even though you can't hear them. Anyone else? I know Amanda does not anticipate us taking any action on this tonight because I know that's some other numbers she wants to crunch through. And I think she wants to bring in a few more people for her next presentation whenever we move that to. So I'm seeing Matt Smith has his hand up. Matt.
Yeah, just to I would say jump on the bandwagon about the great work that this has been. It's really exciting to see a community actually looking what the affordability level is within the community, not just doing kind of, I would say, boilerplate affordable housing and inclusionary at the 80%. Going for the 60% is really, really progressive, and it really meets a greater need than most, I would say, inclusionary ordinances I've actually ever read in my time as urban planner. So I just think really to consider that, but also to understand that there is a bottom line issue. And if you do raise the percentage, particularly for that lower level, it will make it much more challenging for that private sector developer to actually create a feasible project. So really well done. I think the numbers look really great. And so, yeah, just applause.
Agree. Anyone else? Councilor Dibble.
Sorry about this. Shut the echo off on the phone. I would like to hear from the public on this. I know it's a separate public hearing within the other public hearing that we had, but there might be 1 or 2 or 3 people from the public that might like to speak on what we just heard to help move this one matter along. So please, Mr. President, open this portion up to the public.
It was my intent, but just want to make sure everyone has this safe first. And seeing no one else with their hand up. Where did Georgie go?
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. See, the one thing I got to get used to Zoom is people move around. Before you were there. I got you. So I see 3 participants with their hands up on this one.
Yes.
Okay, so if we could run through those 3 real quick, and I just want to let everyone know for the record that Amanda's intent when she first opened this up for tonight's discussion purposes was the fact that she wanted to do an in more depth presentation at her next time she comes in, maybe bring in somebody from the state as well to present the numbers. So we'll take 4 members of the public right now raising their hands. Real quickly, if they have a comment or suggestion, this will come up again. So, Georgie, if you could recognize the members of the public that have their hands up, please.
All right. First member is Chrissy. Please state your name and address for the record. You are unmuted.
Hi, how are you? I hope everyone is doing well. In discussion, you were mentioning, the most thoughtful level of income. My concern would be in questioning how many of these units these developers have discussed that will be ADA compliant, since that community financially usually is of the lower level.
Chrissy, real quick, this is the clerk. Can I please have your last name and your address?
Derby and 73 Tremont Street.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm all set.
So my question was, how many units are these developers considering that will be ADA compliant, especially considering we had our just recent ADA review?
Okay, then we'll take that question under advisement and have Amanda answer that at the next time to see what we can.
I appreciate it because I know the cost for ADA compliant residency is obviously substantially larger. But if we're talking about a marginalized population, we're dealing obviously with a part of our community that it feels like it's being overlooked in this 10%.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Georgie, if you go to the next member of the public, please.
Yep. Next person I'm calling on is Steve. You are unmuted.
Steve Kapatis, 23 Wisteria Street, Salem, Mass. Still with you guys here. One, I unlike the AD unit ordinance, this ordinance really is a big attempt at creating affordable housing. Very well written. I think making it mandatory, making the buildings for 99 years, all great things. And this is what we need. I think this does a lot more than what ADU, and hope that this is a higher priority. My one concern that Mr. Hapworth brought up was about geographical definition of a train station. And the reason being, 20, 30, 50 years, 99 years from now, we don't know where the train station is going to be. We might not even know what a train station is. We may not have them. We may have subway stations. So it's tough for you guys to manage that far out in the future. You need to clearly define where the train station is by a geographical point so that you know where all of this construction, what's the 1 mile. If you want it more than a mile, 2 miles, whatever it is, you need to define it, because 30 years from now, they put in a new train station or somewhere. This may be building where you didn't want it to happen. So I ask that you add a geographical point to it so that everyone's clear where this is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next public member, I have Jen. You are unmuted.
Hi, Jen Lynch, 38 Charles Street. I would like to read the League of Women Voters endorsement of this ordinance into the record, if that's okay with you, Mr. President.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. The League's goal pertaining to affordable housing is access to decent housing and a suitable living environment for all. The League supports programs, policies, and regulations to address the housing needs of low and moderate income families and individuals. Basic human needs must be met before people can participate fully in our democracy. We recognize that the proposed inclusionary zoning ordinance is only one component of a multifaceted plan to resolve the housing crisis. Much more is needed. Fundamentally, we cannot rely on the private sector to fix this public problem. However, we feel it's critical to ensure that specific requirements of affordability are baked into plan development and not a good faith negotiation, which is current practice. The LWF Salem had the good fortune to be at the table while the details of the ordinance were being explored by the city. The components of the ordinance reflect the specific needs of this city, which were informed by data that populated the financial feasibility model that we just went over. The data, which included housing market data from the Warren Group, the Census Bureau, and interviews with local residents and housing experts, The goal was to strike a balance between providing the most meaningful affordability for Salem without driving development away with untenable demands. We specifically endorse the following key proponents of the ordinance. Number of units. Since the ordinance only applies to developments with a net increase of 6 or more units, if it applied to development projects with fewer units than 6, smaller developers would be faced with a financial burden that could prevent anything other than large projects moving forward in Salem, which would ultimately counteract the need for more housing. The definition of affordability. This inclusionary zoning ordinance would make 10% of the units affordable to households at or below 60% of area median income. The standard definition of affordability is typically 10% of units at 80 AMI, which may be adequate for other cities, but would not benefit the majority of Salem residents. When studying the financial feasibility model, we played with deeper levels of affordability, tiered approaches, and higher percentages of units. Ultimately, it was more important to have the deepest possible level of affordability than a shallow level of affordability across a larger number of units. We specifically endorse the fractional payments. In the event that a development project has a number of units resulting in a fraction of a unit, for example, 12 units with 1.2 affordable required, the ordinance requires a payment into the Salem Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which would support the city's efforts to maintain and grow city-owned affordable housing. City-owned housing offers deeper levels of affordability and can also provide wraparound support services in addition to housing. Incentives. We appreciate the flexibility in the incentives, particularly with regard to parking reductions. There have been requests to more clearly define the point of measurement from the commuter rail station, and we agree that this would be a good clarifying point. But fundamentally, we feel the reducing the number of required parking spaces will result in deeper levels of affordability. The other enticements to reduce car reliance, such as car sharing benefits, stipends for residents without cars, and public transit passes, are creative solutions to mitigating traffic and improving environmental pressures from increased car traffic. And finally, the League of Women Voters of Salem enthusiastically endorses the permanence of the ordinance, which does not allow for a conversion back to market rate. Rather, it establishes that the units are designated affordable in perpetuity. We are also firmly in agreement with the provision to ensure that the units are equitable and on-site. Reliance on private developers to fully solve the housing crisis would never work, but this ordinance codifies a measure of protection from development geared only towards those who can afford an ever-increasing market rate. It fills a need by expanding housing stock across a range of income levels, and it establishes firm guidelines for affordability. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next member of the public, I have Buzzy. You are unmuted. You may need to unmute yourself.
And I'm unmuted, right?
Yep. Also,
thank you. This is going to be very fast, not like the other time. It's just 2 points just fast that the good mayor brought. That we're at 80%, most rentals are rented. And to me, that doesn't say we're in good shape. That's just saying we're not attracting the right people that we really want to attract by this affordability. Because our people in Salem in general cannot afford this. So it simply means somebody from somewhere else. And I'm going to assume Boston, because that's when this becomes really cheap and attractive. The other point she brought is we don't know what the market after the COVID, as she called it, the pre-COVID, and how risky it could be. Well, if it is, we don't know, and it could be very risky. Why are we trying to do this now before we even know what that is? Couldn't we be trying to pass or to do something that could totally backfire or go the opposite direction? It goes again with the discussion where maybe we need to take a longer breath and how fast and how strong should we follow this. The other point is brought by Steve, so I'm not going to go in details about it, which is the geographic, because yes, like many said, a train station today, God knows where it will be in 10 years, where it's going to be built, where it's going to be taken, what it could be. So maybe we need to define the area better than to go by a train station or a Dunkin' Donut or something like this. Maybe it's better to go actual geographical addresses, streets, things like that, to define the area geographically more than related to something that could exist or not exist. The last point I'm bringing is we always talk about this is another tool in the box. This is just one aspect of too many aspects. It's not the solution. And I understand that. What I don't understand is why are we always working on the tools that benefit the developers and the real estate moguls, and we kind of like put in the, not even on the map or on our back head, the tools and the things that could actually work with the people of Salem, with our community, what we need, what we really want to see, how we are looking for our city and what we want to get out of it. Because I know all these are one tool, but we're not, the other part where the people of Salem come and should have the priority, it's not even on the map. And maybe that should be re-looked at as well, which goes to my point from the other thing, which is we need to look at the city at this point. This is good. I'm not going to knock it down badly, but I think we can do better. And we need to look at our city, look at the vision and work that way and stop doing those spot zoning and things like that. Thank you.
All right. Next public commenter, I have Lori Stewart. Please state your name and address for the record. You are unmuted.
Hi, this is Lori Stewart. I live at 7 Barnes Road. I just wanted to say that I'm in favor of this ordinance. I echo the comments made by the League of Women Voters, and I think this ordinance hits all the right notes for Salem. 60% of the AMI is very progressive, and I'm very happy that the ordinance reflects that. Another point that I like is that these units can't be built off-site, and the developer has to, can't make a payment in lieu of creating these units, and that the units are in perpetuity. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Lori. Last public commenter, their hand raised. I have Pat Kozemba. You are unmuted.
Hi. Again, I want to thank the planning board and the city council for the great work that you're doing on this very important issue at this historic moment in our country when we are going to be tackling all kinds of overwhelming economic issues, I believe. I think this ordinance really gives Salem a leg up on dealing with the issue of affordable housing. And housing is the largest cost for most of us in our lives. So I would like to urge the city council and the planning board to keep staying positive about this. And I hope that we have enough votes together to continue moving this affordability issue ahead. Thank you very much. Oh, and by the way, Pat Kozemba, 17 Sutton Ave, Salem.
Pat, what time is it in Hawaii?
It's 20 minutes of 4.
God love you for being here for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. That concludes our public commenting.
That concludes the public comment for right now. Obviously, I think the intent is to allow Amanda and Tom to take in some of the comments and then come back with a follow-up presentation. So at this point, I would look to Councilor Turiel's got his hand up. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we continue these hearings to a date, that we continue both these public hearings to a date certain. And we had some discussion of this earlier in the day with stuff. We could go to either a day next week or we could go to 2 weeks from today, because that seemed to work well to give people time to digest things, which would be the 27th. And I would leave it up to the bodies to determine what works.
We'll go with I mean, I would be more inclined to go to the 27th if everyone's available. I'll go through the councilors first. look at the availability. Is that 2 weeks give everyone enough time to digest some of the information we've got tonight and hopefully move forward on some of these things? Councilor Prosnowski's okay with it. Turiel's okay with it. Hapworth's okay. Marcella's okay. Dominguez is okay. I lost Councilor Flynn. I'm not sure if I know he wasn't. Tim Flynn raised his hand. He's in petition. Oh, there he is.
I have a problem with the 27th. Could we do the next Monday? Is that possible?
What is the next Monday? The 4th?
Yeah, it's May 4th, if possible.
I'd say not many of us are going anywhere, so.
I know some of us do have other prior commitments. So, yeah, Councilor. All right, so let's go through this real quick. So it seems, other than Councilor Flynn, most people on the council side are available on the 27th, but we'll do one more. We'll go to the May 4th. What's the availability on May 4th? Dibble's a yes. Hapworth's a yes. Turiel's a yes. Krasuski's a yes. Domingo's a yes. Sergeant's waving his hand. Council Medora's so with that. Nah, but she'll be there. Okay. How we Ben? How?
I'll put the mic up to him. Brett. Okay, listen. Brett, say it.
Who's that?
He said that you'll give him one free glitch if he plays with you.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Council Medora.
So isn't that the day that we were supposed to go back to work?
The 4th? I don't know what's going on down in Washington D.C. or at the State House, but I don't. If we're back on the 4th, I don't envision. I think they're going to roll. I have no prior knowledge. I can't speak for what the government is going to do. But if they say go back to work on the 4th, I'm assuming they're not going to allow gatherings of this size. They're going to roll it back the other way as we rolled into this. They're going to limit the size of gatherings probably to 25 people to start. And right now, there's 25 people on my screen, at least. So that would mean we'd be having a meeting with no public in chambers. So that would be even more complicated. But we can manage it. But
so I'm an optimist.
I know. I'm trying. I want to go back to work myself. I'm getting tired of tripping over my wife walking out of the home office and take the hallway.
So I'm just saying that if for some really wonderful reason we're allowed to meet, and if we hear from the public that we should meet in person on May 4th, more clear on how we're meeting for the next hearing, if it's going to go beyond what is.
If we schedule for May 4th and the availability is if the governor passes regulation saying that we can meet in person and removes that restriction for gatherings more than 10 or 20 or whatever number will be at that point, then we'll meet in person. But if not, the date's certain. Right now, we're just picking the date. In 2 weeks' time, if it turns out that we can't meet in person, then it'll be remotely. Okay? Where did Ben go? Ben, how are you guys doing on your side? You're all set? Everyone's good with the 4th?
I will change my motion to May 4th at 7 p.m.
Councilor Turiel moves that we continue this joint hearing to May 4th at 7 p.m., seconded by
anybody?
Councilor Prosnowski seconds.
McCarthy, the mayor has her hand raised if you like to.
Yep. Before we take a vote on that, Mayor Driscoll.
Can I speak to you after the mayor, please?
Yep, sure thing, yep. Mayor Driscoll.
Thanks, Councilor McCarthy. I'd love to get any feedback from councilors about the May 4th hearing date. Hopefully we're all in one place, but that may not be likely. In either event, is there an ability to close these public hearings on that date? And so we could certainly let people know if today is the 13th, that would be 1 to 3 weeks. Of potential comment, but I'm just concerned that if we keep the public hearing open again, we start to then drip into May, we start to drip into budget season, and these are things that are going to have to go on regardless if we're still practicing physical distancing. So I hope the intention would be from counselors that the 4th we can close at least one of these hearings and put the planning board to work, and then obviously get things back to the council. And I just want to flag that for folks and would welcome any comment with respect to.
I think that 3 weeks gives everyone a lot of opportunity. I agree. To go back in, tweak it. Amanda, if we could get the changes to us as fast within the next week. I know you're working remotely, some of the changes and what we talked about, and that gives you the time. And I just want to, for the record, former Councilor Vino, and the backgrounds you've been putting up. I don't know what's going on over there, but they're pretty cool. DJ Napolitano from the Planning Board wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, just quickly. The mayor just said it, and I think she's spot on. I guess I don't fully understand why we can't close the ADU portion of this hearing. We've had 2 meetings on it now. We're now not going to meet again until May, and I get people's schedules don't work, and I totally respect that. But at this point, I think the ADU portion has been fully discussed, vetted. People have commented. We've been doing this more than a year, as other councils have pointed out. So I think we can close this and then focus solely on the inclusionary zoning, which I think has more agreement. But to keep the ADU hearing going at this point, it doesn't make sense to me, at least. So I know I can't make a motion, but would welcome a counselor to make a motion to at least close the ADU portion so we can move that ball down the road a little, and then continue on with the inclusionary zoning and solely focus on that piece. So thank you for allowing me to talk.
Thank you. Councilor Dibble. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have to.
There you go.
I have to shut my phone off and turn the computer back on and then unmute. I have 3 things to do.
There you go.
I have, with all due respect to DJ, I absolutely disagree. The easy one to get this thing passed is the affordable component, the affordable ordinance. The more difficult one that needs still a lot of work, if we're ever going to pass this thing, is on the ADU. That is where we're hearing a lot of opposition to. So I think we have it backwards. The affordable one, we could close that one almost today. After the next meeting, we should have that closed, and I'm in agreement with the mayor. The ADU one should absolutely not be closed today, because that has such a small impact on any possible affordability, but this other one has a huge impact. We should act on the one that has the support, and we should keep on discussing for a while longer the ADU, which has some strong opposition. Thank you.
I hope the council will make that a motion to close the inclusionary zoning. I would vote on that tonight. I would hope that gets to the planning board.
I think we need one more meeting on it, because we still have some questions on it, and I've been sitting through meetings, like I said earlier, with the Affordable Trust Fund for a whole year now. I will, at the president's request, I will be emailing tonight over some of my concerns that I stated earlier to Amanda and to Tom Daniel.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor, motion on the floor by Council Terrio, seconded by Council Prosniski. Council Sergeant has his hand up. Council Sergeant.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I just want to make one quick comment on the inclusionary zoning. As I was on the trust fund for a year, and I brought it up there also, but just something to think about, especially the planning board. I haven't brought it up to them before. Is that when you get a development by right, 10% is good, and of course we'll take what we can get. But I believe that when somebody gets special provisions from the city, they should give a little bit more, whatever that is, 12%, 15%, and because when you give out, like a variance, a special permit, a zoning change, you're going to get more density by way of that. And I think when you get a little bit more, you should give a little bit more. Even if we give a 25% bonus, 100 units becomes 125. We could give a little bit more of those 25. So I think we should get a little bit extra when we give a little bit. So just want to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is a motion, and see no other comments from the city council. So motion on the floor by Council Toriel, seconded by Council Brzezowski to move all three matters that are in front of us tonight to a date certain of May 4th at 7 o'clock. Is everyone in agreement with that? So the motion on the floor, all those in favor? All those opposed? The matter carries. Also entertain a motion from Council Sergeant. Council Sergeant.
I believe that would be a motion to adjourn.
Council Sergeant moves to adjourn. We stand adjourned. I want to thank everyone for their participation tonight, both members of both boards and the public. Once again, very well done. And I want to thank Georgie for her efforts tonight, making us all look good and keeping us in order. And Eileen as well, because this is a new for all of us. And I really do believe that meetings of this size are going to be like this for a little while longer than anyone really anticipates. So,
Not to mention, she was coming to us from the Overlook Hotel.
yes, she was. At least she was. So we stand adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone. Be safe.